Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa. I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio Mr. Russell Cato, a retired educator with more than 42 years of experience working in the Pinellas County schools, and Mr. Jamie Wilson III, a healthcare provider with more than 30 years of experience working as a physical therapist. My co-host, my dynamic co-host. We're very pleased to have in our studio a very talented young man, very intelligent young man, a very courageous young man who's seeking a congressional seat for District 13. And his name is Brandt Robinson. We've had him on the show before, and we're so delighted to have him again. As we get started, or before we get started, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. We want you to have a very prosperous and healthy 2026. Get that out of the way, and we really mean it.
Amen.
And having said that, excuse us. Good point. My co-host reminded me that I forgot to introduce Brandt's wife. So important.
Uh-oh.
So important. And Brandt's wife, Carol. Thank you for being here as well. I know you're the
foundation.
The foundation. I like that.
Foundation.
The foundation. So having said that, don't you ever do that again, Ray Tampa. The foundation.
Amen.
Welcome, Carol. All right.
Well, Ray, I want to say, not only am I delighted and thrilled and humbled and grateful to be here, but anytime you call a 56-year-old man a young man, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I mean that.
Okay.
A lot of times age is not just a number.
Okay.
It's the way you carry yourself.
Amen.
All the things you do that some men 25 can't even do.
Okay.
I know that.
All right.
So having said that, let's move on. Once again, Brandt, welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Brent, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Please share with us in our audience a little bit information about yourself, such as where you were born, raised, and educated.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that your listeners and your viewers know that I'm actually running for Congress. I'm a 29-year history teacher here in Florida. I'm one of the 1 out of every 3 Floridians who was actually born here. So I've been in Florida all of my life. I've been teaching history, as I said, for almost 29 years. And, I love what I do. I love the opportunity I have, especially because I teach at a school now. It's a public school, but every one of my students was either kicked out of or failed out of one or more schools. I'm right where I belong, guys. I am right where I belong. But this idea of running for Congress on top of that, yeah, everybody say, whoa. Yeah.
The type of heart and
Yeah.
teaching that you need to be.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The other
Good.
question is, Brandt, you are a political activist. You've been that all your life, even teaching. So my thing is, what caused you to file as a candidate for this Congress?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, tell us.
So, briefly, I've had probably hundreds of people over the years on social media, suggest that I run for office, and my response is always the same. I'm so grateful for their kindness, but how do you transition from being a teacher and running for Congress? My wife and I have been part of a community group in North Pinellas County called Indivisible North Pinellas. And that's a whole story in itself. But long story short, our group, we basically met in each other's living rooms for 5 years with no more than 10 people at a meeting. But we never stopped meeting. And today we have 150 people at our monthly meetings, and we've organized the most recent No Kings rally, for example. 3,000 people came to that. So I didn't seek to run for office as much as people in this indivisible group and really the larger movement that we've seen happening over the last year across the country have urged me to run. And I recognize that, your viewers might not know, but a lot of experts think that this district, District 13 here in Pinellas County, might be the only district in the state that has the potential of being flipped from Republican to Democrat. And so when I realized that and putting together the whole context of the larger history that we've been through the last few years, I am proud to say that I am here for it all.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Hey, Brandt.
Yeah.
As the candidate, what are the three major issues you want to discuss with the voters?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Ray. I wouldn't ask all of your viewers to agree with this assessment, although I think most might, that, from the beginning of Trump's administration, the majority of Republicans in Congress at our state level, really across the country, basically pledged their undivided loyalty to President Trump from the beginning. And now they find themselves, as he's tanking, they find themselves vulnerable because, they have not been talking about the things that matter. Anna Plina Luna, my opponent, she hasn't been to the district. She hasn't held a town hall. She's not talking about the things that matter, which is why she's so vulnerable and why I'm excited even as a Democrat in a county with a majority of Republicans, I can really reach a lot more citizens who they can't deny the fact that they have not heard Trump or Anna Plina Luna or any Republican actually talking about the things that are affecting the lives of themselves and their families. So the first issue is this word affordability, but I think most of your viewers and listeners will agree that, there's always a danger that word becomes a cliche and loses its meaning. For me, when we talk about affordability, we're always going to talk about fairness. We're always going to talk about fairness. If you're a CNA or if you work in an assisted living facility and, you work 50 hours a week, but you can't afford childcare, that's just an issue of basic fairness. And I'm confident that every American remembers when they were a child, fairness wasn't a controversial value. It was just something we agreed was something about being human beings. And so, talking to voters and me getting the opportunity to actually go out and talk to voters, I really feel confident that I can really appeal to them on the grounds of fairness. We need more voters talking about what's really fair in their daily lives, lest we run the risk of it just becoming something that's part of, a policy idea or issue that they, roll their eyes about. But when you talk about fairness and how hard people are having to work each and every day just to get by, much less to provide health care or child care for their family, that's just not right.
Okay, give me one more.
The other issue is public education. Now, I'm saying that as a teacher, but I hope you all out there listening will really agree with this, but not be offended by this. I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but the vast majority of our public are hardworking people. And at the end of the day, they might not necessarily have the time to follow what's happening in the news. Maybe they don't know a great deal about our history, but the public is actually on the side of teachers. In 2022, National Public Radio did a really important survey. They asked parents and guardians across the country 3 questions. Do you support your child's public school? Do you support your child's public school teachers? And do you support what's being taught? Do you know 75 to 80% of the respondents said yes to all 3 questions? And when we heard that news, and that was back in 2022 when Moms for Liberty was forming and our governor was attacking teachers, when I heard that, I knew one thing. The majority of the public appreciates us. So the reason I say public education is because we must engage voters to deal with the challenges in our public schools, not only when we're being attacked. In other words, we can't rally when we're being attacked or accused of indoctrination or accused of using critical race theory or sexualize our group. We can't rely on us to be able to galvanize people when people are attacking us. We need to be proactive and we need to go on the offensive to deal with our public schools properly. We need to pay teachers what they deserve to be paid. And here's another devastating statistic. Almost half of all public school teachers in America, and this has been a statistic for 20 years, almost half of all public school teachers in America don't make it to the end of their 5th year. And if this were Apple or some corporation, guys, that would be a 5-alarm fire. So what I'm saying is, there's so much more we need to do with our public schools because public schools are the foundation of our democracy. And public schools are the avenue by which Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump have used to attack people in social services like myself, because they understand if they can control schools, they can control every other major institution in our country.
Excellent. I really like how you explain your position on those issues: affordability, fairness, public education.
Absolutely.
Three things that matter.
Three things that matter.
I want you to pick one of the three and tell us how you plan to attack or deal with that particular issue.
You know, I didn't mention housing, but that's part of affordability, right? Here's what's happening across the country. You're hearing people talk about the moteling of neighborhoods. Now, I'm not here to decide what percent of your neighborhood should be controlled by, corporations. But I think most people in America would agree that when people try to find a house for themselves or their family, that home ownership for a long time has been kind of the foundation of the American dream. Now what we're seeing is corporations are buying houses and they're turning them into essentially money-making ventures so they can use them for rental properties. And then if more corporations are buying properties and buying housing that people like us can't afford to buy, then we're running the risk of not having future citizens have the hopes and dreams of actually owning a house and pursuing what we call the American dream. So I would suggest, why hasn't Anna Paulina Luna actually been talking about these kind of real issues that are undeniably affecting her citizens across the county? She hasn't uttered a word about the housing crisis. She hasn't said a word about affordability in general. So for me, I'm going to basically say that we need legislation that would not permit big corporations from owning a certain percentage of the homes in our neighborhoods. That just seems, again, basic fairness, right? So just on the housing issue alone, but there's so many other issues that she hasn't spoken about.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now you're running as a Democrat.
I am.
In a district that has moved more to the right.
Yes, sir.
In recent years, with the incumbent having won twice by significant margins. Are you concerned about that?
I'm concerned because Whitney Fox was, I think, an outstanding candidate when she ran as a Democrat against Luna in 2024, but she still lost by 10 points.
Right.
But I'm here to say that I think the climate is vastly different now. I think the climate is different because this past year has experienced a real movement across the country, an undeniable movement. You don't have to be a history teacher like me to know movements, but I know movements. Our group is proof that there is a movement that's taken hold across the country, one in which many, many other fellow Americans who might be described as being ambivalent. They're disheartened, they're disillusioned, they might be experiencing despair because they're concerned about the darkness in our country, they're concerned about, creeping fascism and all the rest. And when those citizens see other people taking that first step, it validates the concern they had, and then they're more willing to take the first step. Americans across the country have come out for the first time in larger and larger numbers, so there's an undeniable movement happening across the country. And so I think that's why, Russell, you were saying 2026 seems so promising, because that movement continues. And I think on top of the movement, there are Americans of all political persuasions who actually are really craving, and I'd love to get your thoughts about this, guys. They're craving kindness and decency and civility, but against the backdrop of people that are going to get stuff done.
Excellent. Russ, you got something there?
Yeah.
2026, Russ.
Here's what I think Democrats got to watch out for. Madame, is that his name?
Mamdani in New York, yes.
Socialists won the mayor seat. Democrats have to be very careful in trying to duplicate that in other environments. How he did it in New York may not can work in Virginia, in Jersey. You can't do that.
Uh-huh.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, because you don't want people to group those as a trend that's universally able to be replicated in place.
Yeah. You are saying that this district now can possibly become a Democratic district. That's a fight. That's a tremendous fight.
Yes.
A lot of people, when this man put his name up for mayor, being a socialist, they brand him a communist right away. Right away.
There was a time when he was getting 0% in the polls.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But see, he did something that he did. He took that word affordability.
He did.
Did not weaponize it. He strengthened it.
He strengthened it.
He strengthened it.
But would you agree that he strengthened it by walking the talk?
That's
Do you all
it.
know the day after Trump
right.
won? The day after Trump won, here's this strange guy walking around called Mamdani with a microphone interviewing
Yeah.
Trump voters, asking them about their concerns. He did that. And so he started doing that. And pretty soon people started paying attention and they said, hey, this guy sounds like he really cares. So I think the question really for us in this district is, what did he do?
Exactly.
He engaged with fellow citizens and he created opportunities where they could be heard and validated. And in the process, believing that they're now being actually asked that their input matters. They have a voice. And, that's what we're trying to do, is actually engage more voters.
He made the little people feel important.
There you go.
He touched hands with these people.
That's right.
You see, that's what I'm saying. Now, his strategy may not have worked in Virginia, may not have worked in New Jersey. So I'm saying to Democrats, you got to utilize your own strategy. You can't
Right.
centralize.
Now, are you guys familiar with Andy Beshear? He's the
Yeah.
governor of Kentucky, guys. Kentucky,
Good
pretty
man.
red state, but he's a Democrat.
But he's tough.
He wrote an article a couple months ago and he was really addressing it to Democrats about these are the lessons we've learned, right?
He's
But
tough.
here's what's working, and he referenced Virginia and New Jersey. But you know what he said? He said, first of all, Democrats, you have to be aspirational. You have to aspire. When you tell people, you have to tell them where we're going. When I talk about where I'm going, James Baldwin is my favorite author of all time, The Fire Next Time. In that book, 1963, he said, we have to make America what it must become. So you have to be aspirational. But Andy Beshear said something else. He said, listen, we got to talk like a regular person. We got to talk like a genuine person. If we're talking about substance abuse, just call it addiction, because everyone in your family has suffered from it. So when we go out and talk to people, we have to talk to them as if we care enough about them to be real. And he also said we have to tell them why. And if the why includes talk of fairness, I feel like we can reach more people. Yeah.
Excellent. You gotta pay attention to what people are doing in other districts, other states, in terms of what's working.
That's right.
Now, I think I heard you say, you got to find, either you or Russ said, you got to find out what's on the minds of the voters.
Yes, sir.
What's concerning the voters. Because if I felt you were to go out with a microphone, such as what Mamdani did, and ask people that question, what concerns you? I believe healthcare is going to come up quite often.
Yes, sir.
Especially now with people
With the subsidies
that's right,
for Obamacare.
the
Right.
subsidies causing people to have to pay so much more for insurance. They were already concerned about how much they were paying, but now with the subsidies gone, those prices are going to be prohibited,
Yes.
prohibited, and people won't be able to afford insurance.
Yeah.
I heard a commentator say that people, especially some of the younger people, are going to have to make a decision. Try and pay for this expensive insurance policy, or just take a chance and not have insurance. And they have to look at their general health and trying to make that decision.
That's right.
People shouldn't have to do that.
You shouldn't have to.
We have the Republicans that have turned their back on the Americans by putting people in this position.
Well, I'm going to say, Ray, that I feel confident that I could actually speak to not just Republicans, and I don't use terms like Trumpers or MAGA, but with respect, I mean, I can talk to them in a language that's not going to make them think that I'm some kind of radical socialist. If I just simply say, listen, we acknowledge that many of you have had concerns over the years. You've had concerns about, trans students playing sports in school. You've had concerns about things called critical race theory. You acknowledge their concerns instead of argue with them. Acknowledge your concerns, but then ask them an honest question. Here we are 3 or 4 years later. Have any of those issues really affected your life? And I'll ask them, just be honest with me. I'm not here to argue with you, but let's be honest. At the end of the day, and I'll tell them I'm a teacher. And in the last 4 years, 0 teachers have been dismissed because of indoctrination, grooming, or sexualizing students. 0. Then I would ask them, what's the cost that went into maintaining those kind of strategies, those kind of tactics, those kind of attacks, and then bring it back to center and the issues that matter most. Imagine if we had spent those resources, that time, the energy. Imagine if we'd taken the time we spent on those issues and applied it to the things that matter.
Things that matter.
The things that matter.
I get it from TV. A lot of people sit and watch this stuff, and they're parroting this misdirection, this
Misinformation. Yeah.
It's just parroting, and now it's a concern that airs because they think it doesn't affect them. When you bring it back, this is not affecting you. Why are you wasting energy on this stuff?
Well, before we started the interview, Ray, you brought up Ana Polina Luna yesterday, just talking about Venezuela, for example. I mean, she's parroting everything that Trump says because that's what she's been doing the entire time. So what we have to do is be able to reach voters and ask them to honestly assess their lives and honestly assess whether or not these people that they voted for are really representing them.
We'll talk about real issues, and that is the issue.
But you always leave a voter with a choice, because when they go in that voting booth, it's just them. And that moment is a moment of truth. And when they're honest with themselves and they say, you know what, here's a guy like Brandt Robinson, I'm going to give this guy a chance because I got to acknowledge they're not talking about these issues, and they haven't for the last several years, but he is. And I might even give him a chance if he has a D next to his name. Yeah.
Excellent. Make it happen.
So
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
So have you put together a team yet?
I have. I've put together an incredible team. I have a campaign manager, but the most important thing I think is, like, the way you guys see that I'm talking, this comes out of me freely because this is a reflection of lived experience. I mean, Russell, as a teacher, you didn't ever tell your kids what to think. You were there for them every single day to meet their human needs. This is all I've ever done. But because of our involvement in our Indivisible group, there are so many incredibly talented people out there. You don't necessarily know their talents until suddenly you need a website. Well, our website was created for free by a guy who's incredibly talented. By the way, BrandtForCongress.com. That's the website. So, but the point is, we have some incredibly talented people, and we're bringing more and more people in every day who have incredible talents, and that's going to make it possible for us to go every single place in the district and talk to people.
Say that
about
louder.
things. Yes.
Whispered it. BrandtForCongress.com.
Guys, everybody at home, please say it. Everybody, BrandtForCongress.com.
.com.
We heard you.
I don't know why Brandt whispered it.
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
Let's go to the mountaintop.
Okay.
All
right. Well, Russ,
No, I enjoy Brandt, period. I always enjoy Brandt when he comes. But my thing is, when I'm on the streets talking to people about this podcast, they come and talk to me. And the first thing I said, listen, if you just give me common sense, that's all I ask for. Just common sense. And just think about what the show has said to you.
Amen.
This show has never downgraded anybody.
Nope.
Has never done that. They just, as Ray said, they just put out the truth.
the truth.
They let you evaluate it.
Guys, this
Because
is,
in this town,
yes.
because I live in here, I hear so much can come to me why you're doing it. That we not have done anything negative here.
Nope.
We just put it out to you. Let you evaluate.
But Russell, this is my fourth time being a guest on the show, and this embodies what education is. This is what education. Now, if you're a voter, you're thinking, what would happen if we bring diverse groups of people together on a regular basis to talk about real problems, to talk about the things that matter? Guess what happens when you do that? The outcome's always better. And that's, that's what democracy is. This is what you guys model every time you do the show. You don't talk down to people. You're modeling what can happen if we can actually create forums where we can bring people together to talk about real problems. And at the end of the day, imagine what we might accomplish. In fact, knowing our history, let's reflect on where we might be right now as a nation or a civilization if we've been doing this all along.
Definitely.
Right. That's why I said we have to make America what it must become.
Well, Brandt, give us a general outline of the boundaries
Yes, sir.
for this congressional seat
Okay.
or this congressional district.
Okay. So we're in District 13. Now, remember, David Jolly, who is currently running for governor as a Democrat, David Jolly used to be the representative in Congress for this seat that I'm running for. Except what happened was the Republicans in Congress became concerned because David Jolly wasn't the kind of Republican that they valued. So they gerrymandered this district and they redrew the lines for the district. And so the boundaries of Pinellas County now, District 13, all of Pinellas County is District 13, except for go up to North St. Pete, go up around Gandy. You can visualize this, guys, at home on your map. Go down and imagine US 19 running through the center, north, south of the county. Everything east of 19 and St. Pete, all the way to the south side, is no longer a part of District 13. And yes, a part of that was because there's a lot of African Americans who vote Democratic who are not part of this district anymore. And that's gerrymandering. Oh, that's why a lot of listeners right now might say, well, I'm not in your district, but we're urging you to get involved in the campaign because this is going to have national implications.
Oh my God.
Well, he did a heck of a job with gerrymandering.
Well, now I think we understand it. The fact that we can laugh about it, I know we're not I know. Yeah. See, yeah.
The guy that ran as a Democrat after they gerrymandered,
Yes.
powerfully intelligent gentleman, all the qualifications,
That's right.
and didn't win against Anna Paluna. Didn't win because of this gerrymandering.
Correct.
And that was sickening.
Correct.
That was sickening. And then you have the next Democratic candidate, the one, Fox.
Whitney Fox. Right. Yes.
Intelligent, competent candidate. Didn't win.
Still lost by 10 points. That's right.
And that's why I asked the question earlier. How do you feel about this particular campaign?
Well, I want to reference something that Jamie said. I mean, Jamie was hinting at the disinformation. Disinformation is misinformation that's targeted and used on purpose. There's a lot of those Republicans who didn't vote for Whitney because they were still just in their minds buying into the narrative that Trump has sold them. Remember, Donald Trump has convinced millions of Americans that their country was taken from them. That's what Make America Great Again is. Let's not beat around the bush. Second, he has trained them. I don't use the word cult lightly, but let's be clear. What Donald Trump has created is essentially a nationwide cult. And he's conditioned his supporters not only to believe that their country was taken from them, but they can point without being directed to the enemies because Trump has conditioned them to point to the enemies, the teachers, the media. And so a lot of what went into those people voting was that they didn't have an alternative about people talking about the things that matter because in their mind, they believed that what they were getting was their country back in some way. Now they find themselves undeniably in a situation where all those things they thought they were getting, not only are they not getting them, but they're not hearing anybody talk about them.
So that speaks to what you said earlier. You feel like the climate is different.
It's different.
That gives you a better chance.
It's different.
And there's a movement.
There is a movement
that gives you a better chance.
Yes.
And I'm so hopeful that you're right. Because we cannot continue with somebody such as Anna, Luna, in Congress, just going along to get along.
That's right.
Doesn't have a mind of her own.
Yeah.
I want you to take a minute and just tell us what you want the voters to know.
I think I want the voters to know that there's a chance they may have never really experienced or lived in the country that they know America can be. The reason we love America is because the things about America we love come from the fact that we, the people, value each other regardless of our differences because we understand the benefits of what happens when you bring people from different backgrounds together and create real culture that is truly American. So I want the voters to understand that what we might be engaged in doing is something that we've never really tried fully. Because remember, guys, after slavery ended, we had 80 years of legalized racial segregation discrimination that lasted until the 1960s. How long has America really been a country where we've had everyone even explicitly treated as being equal? Not that long. So that experiment continues to this very day. And I would want voters to know that if they really believe in democracy, especially participatory democracy, where people come together in their neighborhoods and their communities and go to school board meetings and do the things that our indivisible group has done successfully, that is what's going to make America what it must become.
Excellent. We're going to have to close it out on that.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And having said that, we want to thank our guest, Brandt Robinson, and his beautiful wife, Carol, for
Thank you,
coming
Carol.
in and sharing all these important thoughts with us. Congressional candidate Brandt Robinson, District 13.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm so grateful.
And we want to say to you, the audience, thank you for tuning into the Ray Tampa podcast. And we ask that you do so each and every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m., 99.1 FM, The Bird. I want to thank my co-host for a job well done as always. And once again, please call the supervisor of elections office and request your mail-in ballot. Very important. With all that being said, good evening.
Amen.